Johnson City has been a long-time board of distinction for Tennessee School Board Association, and one of the things we have to do is be evaluated by fellow board members from other systems. So here tonight we have Michael Hughes from Sullivan County, Steve Willis from Unicoi County, Mike Masters from Washington County, and Tony Garland of Carter County. So I'd like to say a special welcome to you. Thanks for being here. We always start our meeting with a moment of silence. If you would join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And Dr. Pickering is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Dr. Pickering has an update on Northside Elementary.
Yes, thank you so much. Did y'all hear me? Oh, I need to turn it on.
Testing, Northside School of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, and can't turn on a microphone. Good morning. You know, it always is such a pleasure to come talk to you, to just sing your praises. And I didn't even know they were going to be here tonight. So truly, I've been fortunate to work at many different places. And this is the place that really puts kids first and shows us what really matters in education. And it's when you make a decision, you put children first. And I'm so thankful to be at a place where I know that at any time you all are welcome in our schools. You come to our schools and you are there to support us and to make the right decisions for everyone. So thank you so much. We continue at Northside to help find resources, including you all, to remove those obstacles sometimes students have. And you all have blessed us this year with an extra first grade teacher out of the ESSER funds, because I start doing this explanation, but it helps to understand it. But in kindergarten, kids learn so much about phonemic awareness, phonics, and reading. Well, we looked at our data and we noticed it really early on that kids' phonemic awareness scores were awful. And that is, you hear the sound and you match it with the lips. Well, guess where their lips were? So, you know, it was just a casualty of where we were at the time. So we worked on that. We got the mask that had the see-through plastic in it, and we kept working with that. But it was still really hard for our remote little ones. So, you know, we saw that data. We shared that with Dr. Barnett and people here at Central Office, and they provided this year an extra first grade teacher so we can really, you know, dig down in those skills and try and, you know, get that gap closed in. And so we're thrilled for that. She was literally hired today, and I said, you got parents coming tomorrow. So she's at the school. Honestly, the tech support last year, and it continues to be phenomenal in all ways, in education, in staff development, devices, and the maintenance. That tech hotline for parents was wonderful. And I could stay up here all day, but I won't because like the front office, they were learning how to do it. So when a parent called, they could help troubleshoot through that. Parents were so gracious and would just come to the school and say, hey, help me. And teachers, everybody just jumped in and made everything work so wonderfully with the support we got. We have the reading coaches, the math coaches, the science coaches, and the RTI coaches, and they help make a difference. They make those big classrooms smaller when they come in to try and help and work with the teacher and work with kids. The community partnerships, well, you know, what can I say? Carver, fabulous. We know that we could go talk to them. Boys and Girls Club, Coalition, Rise Up, Girls Inc. And whenever they have our students, we have that partnership with them too. They're like, hey, listen, what's going on here? They could just call. They usually just got the teacher's number, because sometimes I'd be like, well, I don't know how they're doing that. So the teachers had a really close relationship with those organizations to help us. And of course, Muncie, we have over 100 backpacks full of supplies for every grade level for kids who need it. And it's something people think about at the beginning of the school year, but when you have a high transient and kids are coming all the way through the school year, it's great. It's great to replace. It's great to welcome kids, and they have everything they need. So, of course, it used to be called the Heroes Program. I don't know what that's called now, Greg. It's Heroes Program, okay. The Frontier Health Therapist and Caseworker, this past year, it was just a godsend. If we hadn't heard from kids and didn't know where they were, then the Frontier Health will go out with the teacher usually, or with our family school coordinator, and we would see what was going on, what was happening. And a lot of times it was just a glitch. They couldn't get on, or, we found a lot of kids that needed food. They were home, but they were usually home by themselves. So we had a couple of teachers that every day took a meal to students. So you just can't say enough about all the resources and support we had. Of course, our SRO was new to us last year, and he was another one that would go out and touch base with families. Mark Reagan, our nurse, fantastic. Just helping us sort. That was one piece of information. I don't know that I'll explain it correctly, but all of these people take a part of your brain that you don't have to think about, and they sort through it. And so the nurse was that person of like, what do we do? Where does this lie? Where in the procedures? And she helped handle all of that and built a great relationship with our parents. We still want to focus on academic student success, and that's why kids are there. So we're keeping them on track in all ways. And like I said, trying to fill those gaps in after school programming and really helping teachers to differentiate. But we're also working on social and emotional learning, which is so important, especially after going through what we have. And we've been working on this actually for about 3 years, working on being a trauma-sensitive school. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that, but basically that's working on safety, connections, and problem-solving skills for kids. So they start that in the guidance class the first month, and then the teachers take that over and work with kids. And our Frontier Health helps and supports that instruction and how to successfully handle things that are thrown at you. And, you've heard some kids come and they have, they've not gotten what they want to wear, this or that. So their glass is like half full. And then you have kids that before they even come to the building, so they can take a little bit of, I'm not getting my way, because they have a lot more to fill their glass up. And then you have some kids that come in that morning, they've already had it. It's been a terrible morning, and the littlest thing pushes them over the edge. So teaching them the skills is really important of how do I handle that when I feel like I'm going to lose it. So principal might need some of that sometimes too. But anyway, we're excited to have another school year. Our 1st to 4th grade are one-to-one devices with Chromebooks, and our kindergarten are one-to-one with iPads. So they're doing really well. We try and balance that because we know there's nothing more important than that teacher in front of the room. So we're excited about that. This is kind of our theme at Northside. We help to look past other obstacles and create pathways for success for our students. So thank you for letting us have a glimpse to hear about a little bit about Northside. This is our artwork on the back, and he did it with EdgeCare students in the past couple of weeks because we just didn't have any kids. So any questions? Okay.
Thank you,
all.
Dr. Pickering.
Have a good night. Well, I'm staying, but.
And to all of our principals here, we know that you've had a busy few days, and we'll have a busy couple more, and we wish you the best of luck at the beginning of school. We have some recognitions tonight.
Good evening. A couple of recognitions, even though we don't have kids in the buildings yet, we still have a couple of students we want to recognize. We want to begin by recognizing Callie Athan, fourth grader from Woodland Elementary. Callie entered this year's Reflections Art Competition sponsored by our PTA. The theme for the program was I Matter Because. Callie won first place in visual art at the state level and advanced to national competition where she received an honorable mention for her work. We want to congratulate Callie on this tremendous accomplishment. I happened to see this piece, and it's a very powerful piece. Hopefully we can get it up on the web soon. We also want to recognize Yalia Lee, Science Hill Senior, for earning a 36, the highest possible score on the ACT. Congratulations, Yalia. And just a quick note for the board's awareness. Some of you may already know this. I think Coach Turner already is aware, but Jenna Hutchins, Science Hill Senior, has been nominated for USA Today National Girls Cross Country Runner of the Year. Winners will be announced during the USA Today High School Sports Awards show on August 5th at 8 o'clock. So we want to wish her the best of luck for National Cross Country Runner of the Year.
Next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I want to point out one thing and make one change before we vote. So by state law, we are considering a renewal of Dr. Barnett's contract tonight, and by state law, that has to be our first order of business, our first piece of business, actual business on. So that'll be first. I am going to recommend that we take our safety protocols update, which I think most people are here to listen to, and put it right after our building projects update. So with that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve.
Okay. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, that brings us to correspondence, delegations, and communications. There are several people that have signed up to speak tonight. I do want to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We'll have Mr. Williams timing you over there. So with so many people speaking, please be respectful of each other and stop your comments at 3 minutes. Know that we are listening. We will consider what you say. We do not respond at this point in time. If there is follow-up to do, we will make sure that that happens. First, and I'm not sure, is Dan McGuire here? I did not see him.
Sorry for me to mention why. Just go ahead. Mr. McGuire was going to come. We have our first football game moved from Science Hill Stadium to East Tennessee State University Stadium. It will probably it'll have an impact on some of our programming as far as their fundraising ability. So Mr. McGuire is one of our band directors. He's going to come and talk about that, but we're aware of that and in the process of working through those problems. So that's probably why he didn't come. We communicated with him earlier today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next on our list is, and when you come up, will you please state your name and tell us how you're connected with the school system, whether you have a student in the school, whether you're a city resident and a taxpayer, whether you're an employee, how you're connected. So Michelle Marble Ivy.
I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and address you in person. I've been in touch with
Could you tell us your name and how you're connected?
Michelle Marvel Ivy. I'm a Town Acres Elementary parent.
Thank you.
I've been in touch to email the latest CDC and AAP guidance, which states ages 2 and up indoors need to be masked to mitigate the spread of COVID infection. Now, the CDC, since we began corresponding, has further come out and recommended that individuals who are vaccinated in areas with high rate of spread, which is currently Washington County, should also be wearing masks. I was in touch with Dr. Patricia Chambers, who's the chief medical officer down at Niswonger Children's Hospital, and she wanted to make it very clear that she also subscribes to the AAP and CDC recommendations for masking of children in schools. And currently they have 4 pediatric patients at Niswonger down the street. 3 of them are in the pediatric ICU, and 1 of them is currently on a ventilator. I wanted to just take a moment and address one of the responses that Dr. Carter was so kind to provide. I wanted to speak into your assertion that the AAP and the CDC are political action committees. Those are professional associations that are made up of the finest scientific and epidemiological experts in our country. 67,000 members of the AAP are not wrong. So I just want to urge you again to revisit the issue of masking in schools, because I think we're all going to regret it. You know, we'll know if we didn't do enough, but you know, I would just urge you to really give that some consideration and ask yourself if you want to be responsible for those rising case counts and those infections among children. Thank you.
Thank you. John Wood? Okay. Could you again state your
Yes.
name and how you're connected with the
Of course,
schools?
I'm happy to. So my name is Sam Petty John. My daughter will be in kindergarten at Southside. I'm a Johnson City resident and a professor at ETSU. I have some prepared remarks I'd like to read, if that's all right. Hello, Madam Chairwoman Hall and members of the Johnson City School Board. My name is Sam Petty John. As I stated, my daughter will be attending kindergarten at Southside Elementary School next week. I'd like to address the board in regards to use of face masks as a public health intervention to prevent COVID-19 infections in the Johnson City schools. I'm a doctor of public health in the Center for Rural Health Research at the College of Public Health at ETSU. I have 15 years career experience in the field of public health and 5 years in the field of infectious disease here at East Tennessee, including work with the Center of Excellence in Inflammation, Infectious Disease, and Immunity at Quillen College of Medicine. While it's not my intended trajectory of my career as a community health researcher and public health scientist, I have found my work abruptly shifted to assisting my community with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In the past 18 months, I have worked with organizations and businesses to develop scientifically sound COVID-19 operational policies and procedures, including a church, a gym, several restaurants, a private school, a daycare, and even several family reunions, not related to myself, that have reached out to look at safer protocols for in-person meetings. In-person schooling for our children and teens this school year should be a top priority for our community. I think we're all in agreement of that. Even in the face of increased risk of infection due to the Delta variant of COVID-19, I believe that in-person schooling is a top priority. It is my sincere belief, based on current science, that in-person schooling can be done safely with the proper disease prevention protocols. And I have multiple years of experience working to implement these protocols both in lab and community environments. Current science informs us that the most necessary, protective, and cost-effective safety protocol is near universal use of mask wearing across students and staff. Multiple examples of this science exists. Data published in 2021 from Missouri, Utah, rural Wisconsin, and Florida all showed that mask wearing among students and staff lowers viral transmission and eliminates outbreaks in schools compared to the communities where they are located. The earliest study of this was done in the New York City YMCA, and they essentially eliminated all COVID cases from the children population through the use of masks and general safety guidelines. Ignoring the available data and science we have endangers both our children and our community as a whole. Both the CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as professionals in the College of Public Health at ETSU, believe that science-based masking policies are necessary to not only stop school-based infections, but also widespread community outbreaks. Data shows that kids spread COVID-19 as effectively as adults to adults. Living with a child that attends a school that does not have masking policies in place increases the risk of their family in contracting COVID-19. Parents and grandparents whom are unvaccinated will bear the brunt of this by far. There's a very good chance that a parent or family member within our school district will die this year due to a school-acquired infection from a child if we do not act and put high mask adherence policies in place. Currently, our entire state is listed as a high transmission area due primarily to the low vaccination rates. COVID-19 hospitalizations in Tennessee have jumped from 100 over the 4th of July weekend to over 1,000 today, and Washington County has gone from 4 new cases of COVID-19 over the past week to 21 this week. These numbers will only climb sharper and faster
Could you make sure
exponentially.
you wrap it up?
Yes, ma'am. One last sentence, please. The course of the school year, if we do not implement science-based policies to prevent future infections now, we'll regret it later. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek Tharp.
My name is Derek Tharp. I've got 4 kids, 2 at Indian Trail and 2 at Woodland. I don't have any prepared remarks whatsoever. Wanted to tell you guys, I thought about this, like how do you use 3 minutes effectively? And I was like, well, maybe a bunch of data points would help. But then I thought about COVID in the context of all of it. We're 18 months into this. We've reached tribalism. It's political. It's partisan. For every study that says you should wear them, there's a study that says you don't. So I wanted to tell you guys a story about my son. So we got 4. One of them's adopted. And Ben was born and raised in Charlotte. We adopted him from Mecklenburg County, DSS. And he was raised in abject poverty and squalor. Rats, cats, and roaches is how he described his house. When he was taken from his mom and 2 sisters, he was hiding behind a washing machine. So my kid's socialization from age 0 to 4.5 was with a mother, 2 sisters, all of whom were cognitively impaired, and left him with really no education to speak of, no preschool, didn't recognize any letters or numbers, couldn't read or write or spell his name. My kid went to school well behind. After 4.5 years, 3.5 years in the system, we finally got to meet him and adopt him. And we got him in our local school system, and they did some quick evaluations, found out he was well behind. Dropped him back a grade, held him back, got him a private tutor, and we got an individual learning plan, which he's brought up here, which Dr. Reach, your people have been incredible with Ben. But anyway, he was behind, made progress. Work brought us up here. We moved here in fall of 19 and enrolled our kids at Woodland, again, Dr. Reach. And he made great progress again. Then the world ended in 2020. And my kid with ADHD, severe learning disabilities, and tremendous difficulty with reading comprehension and writing ability was forced to sit and look at a computer screen. Thank you guys for providing for us. So for 4.5 hours, he went backwards. The gains he had made, he lost. This loss of learning for an adopted kid, it hits home. And all of this past year with masks, with a kid who has learning disabilities, who struggles with reading comprehension, the easiest way to teach a child to read is to let them read lips. And I think about other kids in our community who are less fortunate. I think about the ones who maybe the only smile they will see from their teacher, their principal, a coach, or a janitor. So for my family and my kids, under no circumstance do we ever want to see them in masks again, ever. And if masks are so effective for those who believe in them, mask your kids. We fully invite you to do so. If it protects your kids, go for it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Goodrich.
I'm Danielle Goodrich. I think you guys all know me by now, but you haven't met my kids. That's why I'm here. My 3 kids are in the Lake Ridge school system, and hopefully they'll behave. Thank you for recognizing parental choice. I pray you stick with it. It's the right thing to do. I've stood before this board several times now. I've discussed the 40+ studies showing masks are ineffective. I've discussed how everywhere had the highest spikes in infection rates during mask mandates and how places with stricter policies fared worse than places open. I've discussed how masks are unnecessary for children as children aren't getting a serious infection and therefore school spread has been low. It was then said that they should do it for grandma, the 70+ age causes of death. However, the infection fatality ratio for children is virtually zero. And now most grandmas have had the shot. So why should we now? Because the goalposts are moving, haven't done what they said they would. We've discussed natural immunity and Dr. Peter McCullough, the most published and peer-reviewed studies of COVID, who says natural immunity is superior to synthetic, showing the government isn't considering all the facts. We've discussed how germ theory is inferior, made up of millions of bacteria and viruses. Why do some become sick from a pathogen when others don't? It's due to their risk factors. Blocking, masking, hiding from germs will never be good health philosophy, as it leaves out much of the health conversation. Unless you make yourself healthy, you'll fall ill to any pathogen that comes along. We've discussed how you don't have the authority to mask our kids, as that comes from the legislature, and they never gave it to you, and some of them recently wrote to remind of that. Penny Schwinn over the Tennessee Health Department recently had to testify before the legislature as she was trying to skirt parental consent for the shot, showing parental consent still exists and the Tennessee legislature stands behind it, as we believe you should. We've discussed how masks are not harm as they block facial mimicry, bonding, and reassurance. Where there's risk, there must be choice, especially with a product that is EUA only, as masks and shots are. There's the Constitution, which looks to uphold unalienable rights, and bodily autonomy is considered a component of the right to privacy protected by the Constitution. A lot of our schools are failing. What is telling parents and children that they don't have a choice? The government makes that for them. Is that American? I find it amazing that parents are clamoring for the removal of other parents' rights. They have a choice. They want to keep a mask on their kid. That's fine. That is their right. But when they infringe on mine as a parent, they are overstepping. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other John Adams. So is it any surprise that as we wrote God out of our schools and our government, that we moved away from the freedom our forefathers intended to protect? God created human beings to be free. The Declaration of Independence states that people are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. I think we need to bring these teachings back. We need to teach, give me liberty or give me death. Those who would give up liberty for a little bit of safety deserve neither. Our school isn't communist. Children who won't ask why and just comply. Teach them to ask questions. Why am I wearing a mask when I'm not getting this infection or spreading it? And if these questions aren't answered sufficiently, they know they're not based in truth. If anyone wants to understand their rights, we're offering a class. Those demanding other people's children be masked especially need this, as they misunderstand their rights and free from fear and to be
Your time is up. Could you wrap it up?
yes, and fear from a virus is not a right, it's a choice, as masks should be. And if they don't like freedom of choice, places like China would be happy to relinquish them of it. Recognizing parental consent is the right thing to do. Keep it up. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm unsure how to pronounce this next name. Is it Eris Hod? Remember to state your name better than I did and tell us how you're
Thank you.
connected with this.
My name is Erez Haddad. I have 2 kids in Lake Ridge School. Masks can be breeding grounds for infection from bacteria, mold, and fungi, which is why the CDC recommend that cloth masks should be washed with soap and water whenever it gets dirty, or at least daily. The CDC also advise washing your hands anytime you take off the mask or put them back on. Pretending the children are dutifully taking all these precautions is absurd. It can't happen. Researchers from University of Witten in Germany established an online registry for parents to report on a side effect of masks wearing. More than 18,000 parents who choose to respond, and more than half reported that masks were giving their children headaches and making it difficult for them to concentrate. More than 1/3 cited other side effects, increased relocate to go to this, sorry, I can't pronounce this word, unhappiness, malaise, impaired learning, drowsiness, and fatigue. After considering those reports as well as testimony from other researchers, a county in Germany recently ruled in favor of parent arguing that her children's basic rights were being violated by the mandates for masks. The court ordered the schools to end the mandates, declaring that they demand the mental and physical and spiritual well-being of students while failing to offer any discernible benefits for the children themselves or for a third party. I believe that forcing my kids to wear masks may cause psychological and physical harm to them. Therefore, as their legal guardian, I cannot in good conscience allow this to happen. In mandating masks wearing for my kids, you violate my freedom of conscience as well as my kids' freedom of conscience, as they do not want to wear a mask. There is no science meaning no randomized controlled trials which suggest that wearing a mask might have any impact in reduction the spread of a virus. In fact, any studies investigating the ability of masks to stop the spread of the virus have concluded that masks are not effective at all in this spread. Mask mandates are based on the opinions of public health officers, political appointees. That's masks wearing may have benefits, opinions which are not grounded in the science.
Your time is up. Could you wrap it up?
Yes. I can understand parents who think differently and still want to send their children to school with a mask. It is their personal choice for their children only. I am the one who makes decisions about my children, and I refuse to send them with a mask. Parents who are concerned have the option to send their kids with mask, online school or homeschooling, but they can't take any choice regarding my kids. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Kim Ting. Please remember to state your name and how you're connected.
Good evening. My name is Kim Ting, and I live in Johnson City. Thank you for letting me address you today with my concerns. My husband and I have 4 school-age children. For the last 14 years, we have had at least 1 or more children attending Johnson City schools. Last year, when our kids were allowed to finally come back to school in person, I heard that masks were going to be required. I was immediately concerned. I knew that this was not only going to be stressful on our children, but also on the teachers and staff. I want to tell you just a few of the experiences my children had last year so that you will understand why I opposed mask mandates in school. On my son's first day back in person, the PE teacher at his Johnson City school had the whole class running hard indoors wearing their masks. This coach had no idea what kind of shape my child was in or of any kind of health problems he might have. When I spoke to the coach about this, I was told that all the kids were out of shape and to just give my son a week and he'll stop complaining. This is wrong. One day, my other son had to stand in the hallway for not keeping his mask up all the way. On another day, he lost part of his recess time for not keeping his mask up. He wasn't refusing. He was just being a little kid. It's only natural for him to want to breathe unhindered and to talk without something covering his mouth. Being punished or losing recess time for this should not have happened, not even once. My daughter felt like a rebel for pulling her mask down sometimes to get fresh air when her teacher wasn't looking. And this is a kid that doesn't get in trouble, not at school. Should a child feel like they need to break the rules just to breathe? This is wrong. A frustrated teacher had a little talk with my child's class, fussing at them to wear their mask the right way, telling them that if they didn't, the teacher would get in trouble. This teacher also told them that if their parents didn't agree with them having to wear masks, then they should just send them to another school. Not every family is equipped to homeschool or can afford to send their kids to another school. This is wrong. I am a Johnson City resident that pays taxes into this school system, and I urge you to take my concerns seriously. Here we are at the beginning of another school year, and there's another variant. Life comes with risks. Please don't sacrifice our kids' childhoods by forcing them to cover their beautiful faces. Masks need to remain optional. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Berry?
Hello, my name is Ben Berry. I was doing the math back there. I've got 4 kids in the Johnson City school system. My wife and I both started at Cherokee Elementary School. I was doing the math, I believe in 1983. That's about when Mr. Hager joined the board, I believe. Joking, of course. So I come before you all tonight as a lot of concerned parents. I've never come here before. But I feel that it's time for a bit of the silent majority to stand up and to speak about our kids and a lot of the stories that you're hearing now, which is, there's a couple things. If you haven't heard today, there was a big press conference by Governor Lee, and he reviewed the TCAP scores from last year. And I have the same concerns that were just voiced regarding masks. There's a lot of social concerns, but the one that was addressed today was the TCAP scores and how far behind students are getting in the state of Tennessee. And to be honest with you, the state of Tennessee wasn't at the top of the list to begin with. And so that raises obviously concerns as parents. So last year, right, we embarked on this thing and we didn't really have the facts before us of how wide the spread was going to be among kids. Was this disease going to kill kids? There were a lot of decisions that were made by you all, and I respect those decisions, by going to remote learning as well as mask mandates. It's apparent now that, in my humble opinion, those are not worth the risk. The TCAP scores have come out. The state is way behind now in TCAP scores. And so my question is raised of, is the risk worth the reward? Well, if you look at the data, and gosh, as everyone states, there's as many studies on the affirmative as the negative on mask wearing. But one fact that we do know is that kids that do contract COVID are 99.999% effective in overcoming it and being healthy once again. And so my question is, we're raising a level of poverty by way of kids getting less education in a generation that unfortunately, and it did speak today at the press conference, kids that are underprivileged, the gap is widening. They call it an education gap because they don't have parents that are home. My wife and I are both self-employed. When we were in remote learning, I don't know how parents that have both had jobs could do it. Honestly, they've got kids at home and you're relying on them to do their own work is ludicrous. And we saw that in my own kids' education. And so to think that the distractions of both remote learning as well as masked learning, those are distractions. And I would ask you to give us parents the freedom to make that choice. If parents want to wear a mask, let them put their masks on their kids. Parents that don't want to wear the mask with their children, then don't require that. And so allow parents to make that choice is what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Sibley. Remember to state your name and how you're connected with the system.
Hello, I'm Dr. Denise Sibley, internal medicine, and I've treated personally over 1,400 patients successfully with early COVID treatment. I know COVID like the back of my hand now after 17 months. COVID is no longer a pandemic, but a viral illness that we will need to live with. Currently, according to the Tennessee Department of Health statistics for 7/30/21, which was the most recent, There were 401 hospitalized with COVID, representing 1.8% of all hospitalized patients. In Tennessee, the daily case rates are very similar at this time in 2021, but slightly lower than they were at the equivalent time in 2020. And the deaths are substantially lower. For children aged 5 to 18 in Washington County, there were only 35 cases of COVID over the last 7 days. Many children now have natural immunity because they've been exposed. Usually they have a sniffle and they're better. Yes, Delta is here. There are over 1,000 mutations. There are many variants of concern. The next one you will hear about, I'm sure, is Lambda, and then there's Epsilon coming as well. It may be more contagious, but there's no data on the Tennessee Department of Health website, the CDC, Worldometer, or the Johns Hopkins Health Security website that show any greater mortality. To date, more than 16 months into the COVID era, there has been no randomized controlled study substantiating or proving mask efficacy in reducing infection or reducing mortality. Actually, 6 months into our own mask made in Washington County in 2020, that was from July 14th to January 14th, with the high uptake of mask wearing, cases, deaths, and hospitalizations were at their peak. So clearly, masks worn for the previous 6 months did not prevent these outcomes. Cloth mask in particular, due to the moisture retention, reuse, the proven poor filtration against this particle size, they increase the contamination due to the repeated touching of the face in the mask. Here, when I've been here previously during 2 previous board meetings, I watched 2 separate administrators who were adults. They touched their cloth mask 26 times during a 4.5-minute address and 16 times during a 5.5-minute address. Masks impede oxygen. They produce carbon dioxide retention. They're both proven to affect brain function and long-term brain development. Masks are detrimental to the psychological development, the socialization, and the feeling of safety of children. If parents and adults so desire, they should have the freedom to mask their own children. Those who do not wish to encumber their children and delay them do not have to mask them. We will live with this COVID as we have other viral illnesses. Please allow the children to develop healthful breathing ability as we have for thousands of years.
Thank you. Tony King. Is Tony King here? Is there anyone else that believes they signed up to speak and has not been called? Did you sign up by noon today? And your name? I'm sorry, we have a noon cutoff for speaking. All right, that ends our correspondent and delegations. Thank you all for who took the time to speak. So our first item of business on the agenda is our superintendent's contract, our 2021 contract. Mr. Williams is chair of the Superintendent's Compensation Committee, and he has a recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. The Superintendent's Compensation Committee met on July 30th, and at this meeting, we reviewed Dr. Barnett's current contract. And in the state of Tennessee, the superintendent or director of schools contract has a maximum term of 4 years. And this year just happens to be the 4-year anniversary of your original contract. Secondly, we reviewed Dr. Barnett's evaluation by the Board of Education, and it was a very high review. Across the 7 different categories that our board reviews Dr. Barnett, he had an average score of 4.71 out of 5. There were some additional comments like Dr. Barnett has done a fantastic job in a difficult year. Johnson City Schools remain on the cutting edge in public education. He's a tremendous asset to Johnson City Schools. Under Dr. Barnett, he's created a great working environment and a great working relationship, both with the Board of Education and with staff. and Dr. Barnett may be the best superintendent, director of schools in the state of Tennessee. Thirdly, we review the compensation of superintendents both within our region and throughout the state of Tennessee. And as a result, we're presenting a contract that you have in your package. This is an action item, and it's presented both as a motion and as a second, since it's a standing committee. And so we'll open it up for questions.
So Mr. Williams is right. That comes as a recommendation from a committee. It does not need a second. Are there any questions about the contract or comments?
I don't think comments are necessary after that report from Mr. Williams. I think it's a well-deserved contract extension. While I'm speaking, I attended the opening session Friday. We heard from all principals. I think if you listen to their remarks first, let me thank them for their kind remarks about the Board of Education, and then their remarks about the leadership of Dr. Barnett and the central office staff, particularly in the last year or so. So I fully support the extension of the contract, and hope Dr. Barnett does not burn himself out. All the things that he does and the time he spends with his work.
Thank you, Mr. Hager. Any other comments? I'll echo, I think the evaluation speaks for itself, and Dr. Barnett, you do a great job, and it's obvious that your staff believes in your leadership, as do we. So thank you for all you've done. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
All right. Next comes reports from the superintendent and staff, and I believe we're going to go to building and then safety.
We'll do, Mr. Trivett is in the building, and we appreciate you with your building update. And Randy Trivett's a city employee, but he always comes over, gives us an update. It's much appreciated on our buildings, the facilities. We've got a lot going on. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. I do have some allergies, and that's why I'm a little hoarse, so I apologize for that, but it is truly allergies. The first thing in your packet that I wanted to talk about was Indian Trail Intermediate School. We are finishing everything up. We have building final inspections by the state and by the city, all areas except for the front lobby. We had some delays on lead times on those front doors going into the actual office space, but everything else is completely finished. We did our final punch list out there. They're working. They have 30 days to complete their punch list of items that we went through and marked up, paint defects or small things like that. But the building's been turned over to the school. They've been setting up the classrooms. The storage area is completed. They're actually storing things in there already. The last thing that we have to do that we're in the process of working on that's not part of the scope of work of the contractor is ordering the science lab tables and also the storage for the orchestra in the new climate controlled storage facility at the back. So we're working with a furnishings group. We've met a couple of times with the principal and some of the science teachers to get those lab tables identified and what kind they want. And then I'm working with Dr. Barnett and Miss Leah to discover or try to find ways of paying for those. But we're shooting to have all that completed before fall of 2022. when the middle schools take place. Any questions on Indian Trail? The next one is Southside Elementary School. I was out there this morning. We got our final building final inspection from the city today. Everything passed today. We got our final CO from the state fire marshal and got that passed, so they're able to utilize the space. The contractor, we've completed the punch list for that project as well. So the contractor's working on cleaning up outside all the construction material, getting that out of the way so that they can have open house tomorrow evening. That should be done. I think everything, all that was left when I was out there today was gathering up the fencing, and the company is supposed to pick it up tomorrow. And so that project will be done in a couple of weeks when they finish all their punch list. And it turned out, I don't know if any of you have been out through there and looked at that, but it turned out absolutely beautiful second floor.
We'll schedule for Indian Trail and for Southside.
Yes. Be a great tour.
Board to be able to take a tour.
Yep. Both of those projects turned out extremely well. The furniture for Southside has been ordered, but with the climate that we're in the world that we're living in today, they're not due to be here till September, October. Thankfully, she's not going to be using but one of those classrooms, and they set it up with older furniture. But before next year, the furnishings will be in place and installed. So all that's being taken care of with those two. At Woodland Elementary, actually, I was out there again today after I left Southside. I went there because school's starting back, and that gives us a hard target of places and things that we have to do, because we can't come up with excuses to say we're not done or we're not ready for kids to come in. And I will tell you this, Woodland has been harrowing this summer. I feel like the contractor bit off a little bit more than he could chew on the phasing part. They did two phases this summer with the HVAC. And it was a big task. It was a big project, demoing inside, tearing out all the old duct, putting in the new duct, setting units on the roof, cutting holes through the roof, getting all of that stuff installed and tested and inspected, and then starting to go back with insulation and ceiling tile and all the things that's associated with it. So it was a big task. And we had deadlines of when they needed to be finished so it could be turned over to the next subcontractor and then the next subcontractor. And it became kind of a rolling delay. But we finally were able to finish thanks to the school's help with some cleaning staff and some maintenance personnel. Dr. Barnett, I spoke to him on Thursday, and he was able to give us plenty of support and some backing, some backs out there on Friday. And they worked really hard on Friday. The existing school staff has been working extremely hard, and they got everything kind of set up and clean. They were working on finishing it today. And when I was out there today, it looked like a whole new different world. Now, what we will do is our target was to get everything ready so school could open. And I think we've gotten to that point, but we will walk through probably next week and do a punch list of all the things that they did inside. So they may be some cracked ceiling tiles, some speakers that are broken, some stained carpet, some of those things that were put back in place, and we did the best they could to get it cleaned. But we'll go through and do a real detailed punch list and have the contractor fix all those. This project's not over until fall of next year. That's the scheduled completion date. So before it's completed, all those things will be addressed and taken care of. And so that project is still, they're laying block on the outside for the addition of the 8 classrooms. They've got all the slabs poured. They've got the under slab plumbing completed. So they're putting up walls on the backside. So we're moving ahead and taking advantage of the weather and the time that we have. Lake Ridge Elementary School. This is a new one for you all because it's been in architectural design the last few times I've been in here. But we actually got the bids in. We had 2 bidders. The awarded bidder was Preston Construction Company, and it came in at a price of, I want to get it right, $9,755,000, which was well over our budget of what we originally were going to do with this project. And if you remember when we first started talking about it, we were going to add the 8 classrooms. Then throughout the process, we determined that it would be a good idea to go ahead and replace the interior HVAC. So we added that to the scope of work. And so the entire project came back You know, when you add architectural fees and everything in there, it's a little over $10 million. But thankfully, with the ESSER funds coming in, paying for HVAC upgrades, which is what we're doing there, and it fits with that program. They're going to be able to cover about $3.2 million, which put us basically about $500,000 over what we had already borrowed. And I spoke with the city manager, and he said that we would go back and issue some more bonds to cover all that. So that's why we're not cutting anything out. We're not doing any VE. And everything that was designed in the scope of that work is going to be completed. And it's a big project. It's going to be as big a project or bigger than Woodland is. So I want to say this, and you guys already know this. I've already heard you talk about it some tonight, but your principals are amazing. To be able to deal with this inconvenience the way they've had to do and school getting ready to open, they've been superstars in working with me and understanding and being patient. Now, when they get a home, they might be slamming the doors and throwing stuff and taking my name in vain. But they're actually great to work with and they're understanding. I mean, and I tell them all the time, and I'll share this with you, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So it's a lot of inconvenience. There's a lot of things gets broke, but it'll get fixed back and you'll have an omelet after it's finished.
They quoted you on that at opening day. So,
So Lake Ridge we're giving the contractor a notice to proceed for August the 9th. He will probably start mobilizing then. But one of the things we're finding out, not only on these school projects, and I want to make you guys aware of this, but not only on these school projects, but we got some large city projects that I'm overseeing as well. We're having a hard time getting materials. The contractors are ordering material and the supplier saying it's going to be 6 months before they can get it. So that's going to have an impact on completion. And so it's going to take some time because we're having to work around this, and you can't go to another supplier. You can't go anywhere else because it's not a matter of price. It's just a matter of availability. And a lot of it is steel, structural steel, things that you need to build these projects. So just be prepared for me to talk a little bit about delays and things on these projects because of that. But I would think that by the end of August, we should probably start seeing some grading. End of August, 1st September, we should start seeing some fencing definitely and some grading going on at Lake Ridge. Town Acres Elementary School, I finally got a proposal from an architect to design it. I'm getting that ready to present to the city commission for their approval. Once they approve it, I'll turn the architect loose to get the design done. He feels like, and talked to some contractors, that's about a $150,000 job. I talked to the city manager last week and he says, as soon as we get that thing going, let's get it done so we can get that screening built up in between those pods. Science Hill High School Science Lab renovations. Say that 3 times real fast. That project, the city commission has already approved the architect's contract. That's been sent to Miss Leah. She's doing her process with the state because that's 100% ESSER money. But once she gets a PO sent to the architect, he thinks it'll take 2 to 3, maybe 4 months to get all the design completed. And then it's about a year to 15-month project to remodel and do all that. But it'll be within the time scope that you've got to spend that ESSER money. And then last but not least is Mountain View Elementary, the HVAC upgrade. We're estimating this to be around a $3 million project. Mountain View's got all sloped roofs, so there's going to be some design challenges to figure out how to set these units so that you are still obtaining the amount of outside air that you're supposed to obtain. But I think that project's going really well. The architects and Henry Welch, who does a lot of our school designs for mechanical and HVAC, is working on this project, and they're working me up a proposal for architectural fees right now. So as soon as I get that done, I'll get that to the city commission and we'll go through the process. There's a process, and you all know this very well too, but there's a process going through city commission and school board and all that takes, by the time you get through purchasing and insurance approvals, you've got 2 or 3 months of just approvals and processes that you have to go through before any work can begin. That's all I have. You guys have any questions?
I just want to say thank you for your very thorough reports every month. I feel like I know exactly what's going on. So I just really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
I appreciate you saying that because I worry about that. I want to make sure you guys are well informed and know what's going on. And there's never any surprises.
We appreciate you spending one Monday a month with us.
I love it.
Did we talk about Davis Bacon last time?
We did.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure they're aware of
I always want to call it
that
Kevin
cost.
Bacon, but
Kathy Bacon.
And that was another reason the costs were a lot higher because with ESSER money, we had to put Davis Bacon into the HVAC. Mr. Haggard.
Yes, sir. Can't go without asking something.
There you go.
I asked the board, please don't brag too much because we have the city personnel director in attendance.
Well, I appreciate you bragging on me in front of him. That's a good thing.
Please don't brag.
That way he'll hold my pink slip a little longer.
Any update on the turf at the high school?
Well, I'm not involved in that project, so I know the big reason. I talked to the city manager, and they are having to. They've got the turf. They've just got to get scheduled to come in here to put it in. But that's why they had to schedule the game at ETSU is because of the timeline and the possibility of not getting it in. But I don't know. I'm not overseeing that project. You guys have got a lot of other. You know, what I tell them at the city is I take care of everything vertical. They can take care of all the horizontal stuff. And that's horizontal.
Today, I happened to be on Lone Oak Road going toward Cherokee. There were at least 5 city vehicles. The road is blocked. Right, the block before you get to Cherokee School. Do you have any idea?
Is that today?
Today.
I haven't. Is it a water project? Say the HR guy even knows more than I do about
Is
that.
it going to be done by Wednesday? Well, the road is blocked and you have to go through the neighborhood and come around.
Call Tom Witherspoon. That's another one of those horizontal projects.
We'll check with him.
Anything else? I appreciate your questions, though. I always do because I never can anticipate what they're going to be.
Well, I will ask another one then.
Okay.
You haven't said anything about the wall lately.
I knew that was coming, didn't you?
That is vertical.
That is vertical, and I am taking care of that. We're in the process of writing the specifications to re-brick it and to put a metal coping on the top of it. So as soon as we get that through purchasing and through bidding, we're going to bid that out. We don't have anybody internal can do that. So it will be something. I'm really hoping it's funded in this year's budget, and I really hope it's done before this calendar year is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is our safety protocols. They're in your packet. Dr. Wallace is here for any questions that you may have for clarification about the protocols.
So if you will recall, during our May board meeting, we had an opportunity to present some safety protocols that we were moving forward to toward the summer school programming, which as Dr. Barnett and I understand, there was a motion made that any change to those protocols would need to come before this board for your discussion. So although there's not a change, we certainly wanted to make sure that you are aware of what our protocols are. They've been pretty consistent with what we presented in May, with the exception of the change because of the nursing grant. So one of the big differences, I think what we've heard certainly across political spectrums and different viewpoints is everybody's in agreement students need to be in school, right? So everybody's heard that. The governor certainly reiterated that. I know Dr. Barnett's extremely proud of the fact that we had students in school 168 days last year. When we look at other districts around us, we certainly felt good about that. So we want to have our students certainly in-person learning. That's important to us. The big difference, though, is we were presented an opportunity to pursue a grant with nursing that provided us 4 additional nurses. With that, will allow us to do some testing, protocol testing with parental approval in our schools. So one of the frustrating things I know for parents and certainly for teachers, if you had some symptoms and you basically only had kind of one avenue back, certainly initially. And sometimes they felt like their students were out of school too long. We felt like they're out of school too long. As the Tennessee Department of Health continued to update those protocols, there became some other options. There's an additional option now, hopefully that'll allow students to come back. So if they have 2 symptoms, they can come back relatively quickly with one of 3 different paths. Either they can go to their primary care provider, be tested if they choose to do so, and come back with a negative test. They could go to their primary care provider, get an alternative diagnosis that's kind of listed on this return to school algorithm that will allow them to come back quickly. And then thirdly, they could be tested. We could provide that testing. And I know we've already started that. We had a parent today that called and asked if we would provide that testing for their students so that they could start school on time. So those are 3 ways that allow students to come back relatively quickly. And I know I was gone during the June meeting. I think Dr. Carter had a question on timing of that test. It says 24 hours, Dr. Carter. It'd probably be closer to 48 because you have to allow for, we test, we put it in FedEx, it has to be shipped, they do the testing, and then they ship it back to us. Parents will be notified through an individual portal that they have. And I just want to make it clear, make sure I've said it clearly that that testing is with parental approval only. So again, you've had the protocol in front of you since May. It's essentially the same. We thought it might be a good opportunity for us if anybody had any questions about that.
Dr. Wallace, could you talk a little bit about if someone is exposed in a classroom, what happens?
So 2 things are going to happen. First of all, we would notify that direct group. So a little different than last year where we would be directly involved in all the contact tracing, which, as we've talked about numerous times, our nurses spent hundreds and hundreds of hours doing. They did an amazing job calling parents and notifying direct contacts. This year, we're going to notify groups. We actually had a fairly large group not too long ago that was exposed. We sent the entire group a letter, asked them to continue to monitor symptoms so that they can be aware of that. If at that time they're concerned and they want to take one of those steps, they're certainly welcome to do that. If we become aware of a direct contact and we need to make that notification, we've had that happen already as well. We will help support that, but we will not be directly involved in the hard specifics of contact tracing. One, it's going to be infinitely harder because of the way we've removed some of the cohorting.
And when would someone need to quarantine?
So they would certainly need to quarantine if they are a positive contact or a positive case. And they would need to quarantine if they're a direct contact to that positive case, whether they've been notified. And often that's going to come through the health department or through their doctor.
So in a classroom, what would qualify as a direct contact?
Well, if, again, what the Tennessee Department of Health would say is a direct contact is 6 feet and 15 minutes. The difference is we're not going to be like directly involved in that process. So we think, and we're still trying to work through this process because this is a little bit new. We think what will happen is they're going to notify the direct or the positive cases. Those positive cases will notify the people that are directly involved with that. If we are aware of a situation, again, like the example that we had today, they'll notify us directly of a contact. Typically, it's a household contact that might have a student in our school, and we would notify them of when their return date would be. The difference is one of the things that was concerning, one of the reasons why we wanted to hold on to the contact tracing, certainly all the way through the end of last year was, and I know it was incredibly frustrating for parents. I'm a parent. My oldest daughter was traced 3 different times. So she's, oh my gosh, I have to go home. My youngest son, never once. So some people just really had bad luck, with the way the process went. But the advantage of doing it in the school was we were really very particular on how we identified those folks. They go in with an administrator, they talk to teachers, we pull seating charts apart. And although it seemed like we were sending a lot of students home, we felt we were actually sending less students home than would be the case. And we certainly had districts around us that were much more universal. Like we had a class, we're just going to send everybody home. So we felt like that was something last year that we could do very carefully. it would be much more difficult this year because of the lack of cohorting that we're going to be doing or not going to be doing.
And could you explain why masks are required on buses this year?
So we looked at that real closely, and I know Dr. Barnett reached out to a lawyer to give us an opinion on that. He felt like that it was a direct mandate from the CDC. It wasn't a recommendation, which is what they're talking about with the recommendations, the most recent CDC recommendations in the classroom. It was a mandate. And the legal opinion, and I'm sure Dr. Barnett will want to jump in here, basically said it is a direct mandate. You might not have to do it, but we felt like if a lawyer's telling us that's what the law says you need to do, we felt like we should support that.
Well, and one of the things involved with that, activity buses, that sort of thing, is usually such a short trip. When you look at your protocols, if the students are all masked on the bus and you have a positive case, they don't have quarantine. That's positive. That helps us keep students in school,
And
because that's our
is-
goal, is to keep children in school.
That's the same in a classroom if there's a contact and they're both masked?
Absolutely. That's the difference
true.
in the return to school algorithm or in the contact tracing process. If you are around somebody that was a positive case and you had a mask on, you would not be subject to quarantine.
And they had a mask on.
And they had a mask on. That's correct, both folks. But again, that's not something that we're going to be directly involved in. We would just help support that.
So I'm still a little confused. So the health department is the person that's going to, if we have a kid with a positive case in a classroom, then we're going to rely on the health department to contact that student, and that student is then going to tell the people that were around them. Is that how that works?
That's the way we understand that it's going to
Okay.
work. That's correct. Again, this is new, Ms. Simpson, and I know
No,
it's
that's fine.
something that we're going to continue to try to work through. We've had an incredible partnership with the Tennessee Department of Health and certainly the Regional Health Department. They've been a great partner. But I think this is pretty consistent with what school districts are doing throughout. And again, Dr. Barnett has a lot of conversations with his colleagues that are superintendents, and I think it's pretty consistent with what school districts are doing throughout.
Dr. Barnett, could you tell us a little bit about what happened today with the governor's press conference?
So Mr. Berry mentioned the governor's press conference. When you get back, when you watch the whole thing, there's a point where the governor says essentially, very clearly, in my opinion, and I sent this out to the board as well, that masking is an option for parents to choose or not to choose. And then the Speaker of the House as well followed that up. Basically, that if a school system does choose to require masks, then they would have special session and they would take action essentially against the systems. Certainly not directed at us personally, I don't think. I think it has to do with different parts of the state. But it's very clear to me that becomes something that we were probably going to have a pretty long conversation and discussion about. That's just not an option for us as a board and for me as the superintendent's recommendation. So it's not on the table.
Ms. Hall, I would also say, forgot to mention, certainly, and I know several people have mentioned the concern about providing PPE or having PPE. We're still going to provide that for anybody that would want that at the district. So if somebody.
And again, say what PPE is.
Personal protective
Includes
masks.
Masks and.
So if somebody
hand
wanted mask, hand sanitizer, things like that, we will have that available. Certainly going to provide that on the buses.
We use enough acronyms here. We got to
Yeah.
make it easy.
Thank you.
Dr. Carter, you had something.
Well, and I'm glad Dr. Barnett brought up the press conference with, of course, Governor Lee and the Speaker of the House, Representative Sexton. But I did want to say, because I think it's important, and obviously many in the community have emailed or they've come to speak, and it is confusing. There is conflicting data. I think one of the speakers even mentioned that. Like I woke up this morning and a local, in the tri-state area, pulmonologist had sent 47 studies confirm the ineffectiveness of masks and 32, the negative health effects. So you can find this, but what I wanted to say too, we wake up every morning and the CDC has a new set of guidelines, and it's very confusing. And, the recent set of guidelines was from some, study that was rejected in peer review. And so the board hears what the public hears. We wake up and we hear what the CDC says. We wake up and hear what the American Academy of Peds says, but we also need to ask questions. I mean, who funds American Academy of Pediatrics? Pfizer puts a lot of money into that. I just think I'm saying this too to say that I feel like it is sort of a sad time to be in medicine because, and I think everybody is intelligent and you have people that line up on both sides. But I think it's digging in these questions as to why, and I'll even say this to go as far as locally, is, the headlines on our newspapers or on the local TV stations and all the warnings from Ballad. And my question to them is, well, you are sponsoring an Alabama concert at the Bristol Motor Speedway on August the 14th. These messages cause the confusion in the community, and the board hears those same things. And I think it's, like I said, we don't have any special information that you guys have. So all that data, studies, everything's the same. I think it's just time, for us to dig a little bit, ask those questions. Why is this? Why do we get so much conflicting data? And I'm so glad that Representative Sexton and Governor Lee said that, because I do feel like that is parents' choice, because parents, have, although I feel like all of us care about the children in this community, nobody cares about a child more than the parent. So I just wanted to say that, some people are not going to be happy with this mask optional, and some people are going to be happy. But let's just, do what's best for our kids. I want our kids to be in school. And I just cannot forget about the learning loss and the mental health effects that our kids had last year. But I do appreciate everybody and all the differing opinions. And so anyway, and thank you, Dr. Wallace.
Dr. Carter, one thing that I would just add to that is certainly in the last 17 months, and you have had an opportunity to evaluate Dr. Barnett. I know that he has been intentional about reading, and he and I have discussed every single email in detail. So, some folks have sent hundreds of emails, some have sent 10, 12 emails. Every one of those have been read, that we've received emails on both sides of the argument. They've been read, the links have been looked at. We've looked at the links to the links. We're in the business of educating students. This is a position that we were put in last year. We've continued to try to do the best that we could. He's done a great job leading us through this process. Every decision that's made has not been made in a vacuum. We're not only administrators, we're parents and husbands and those kinds of things as well. And I'm proud of, most importantly, and I know Dr. Barnett would say this, our teachers that have continued to provide an excellent product when it changes daily, and sometimes changes from us to the advice that we give them. So thank you as a board. If you have any additional questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I do have some additional questions. I do have a question about our learning loss this year. Have we seen dramatic learning loss this year, Dr. Barnett?
We will have a report on that. We have seen not nearly the learning loss at state reported today. We were in school and had opportunities for education for our students. So we'll have a report on that. I didn't think tonight's the night to do it. In fact, the data is still embargoed, so we can't really talk about it in details. There's some patterns that are similar to what the state saw, but the differences between us and the state, we're essentially, if you look at this, the school systems that we compete with as far as academics, I think I may have mentioned in the last board meeting or at some point, many of them do not have the poverty level that we have and many of the other characteristics of our district that we compete at a very high level. We still are in that same position. Everybody's either fallen back some some have fallen greatly, and we're not in that situation. But I'd like to get a breakdown for you and have a good conversation with comparisons, but also comparisons from the last test to now. We have that. And then how we perform. A lot of it we're very proud of, and there's some areas that we're not discouraged, but we know where we need to work.
Mr. Hager has a question.
I don't have a question, just a comment on the new protocol. I'm glad that you have included in-house testing. I think that will be a benefit for all involved. And I just want to say, I think that's a step forward, doing in-house testing.
Great, thank you.
And I did have a question about that. Since you, of course, have repeated it would be with parental consent. Is that going to be a something that's determined, like, with all that new paperwork we get at the beginning of the year, or would that be a phone call that day? How's that going to?
It'd be a phone call that day.
That day.
It's not something that's going to go out, give a general consent.
So that
Yeah,
day.
so we've got a test. You come in, you can fill out that paperwork. Ms. Patterson's already had an opportunity to look at that and approve that consent. So they'll know at that time that test is being done.
Okay, I have one more.
Yes,
I appreciate Dr. Carter's comments about parental choice, but I have had a significant number of emails from parents who do not feel that they are getting their parental choice when children are not mandated to get masks. And so I want to kind of address that issue. How can we assist those kids who do not feel safe because their peers are not wearing masks?
So again, it's a great question. I think a lot of those folks believe in the efficacy of masks, and so that's an option for them that they have. We also really are going to be diligent of trying to follow that return to school algorithm. So making sure that any symptomatic students, I know that there is the opportunity for students to be asymptomatic, and that's a question as well. But certainly to address those symptomatic students so that they'll have to follow that protocol that I mentioned earlier. They'll have to have one of those 3 gateways to return to school. We talked about this in an administrative meeting. It's not that we have no protocols, that we've returned to 0 protocols. We still have some protocols, and we still have some protocols that are going to allow us to help support that. Our goal obviously is to keep six students out of school, and that's no different than it would be with any other disease. We don't let students with the flu come in if they still have a temperature of 100 degrees. So that's going to be pretty consistent. But obviously not everybody's going to be happy with any decision that we've made.
Well, go ahead.
I think another thing that's really important to know, if a parent chooses for their child to wear a mask, it's going to be supported by the school. I think there's some concern about bullying and teasing and that sort of thing. That won't be tolerated one way or the other. We need to support that decision and help those families, whether they choose to wear a mask. That's going to be supported, or if they choose to send their children without a mask. The support that we need from families right now is to check their children if they're sick, like in any other year. And this is not like any other year. This is more important than ever. But we always ask, please check. And if your child's sick, don't send them to school. Don't give them something to lower their temp and send them to school. Let's get them checked. We have an opportunity for them to bring them in. We can test and see if it happens to be COVID-19 or not. And we can also, some of our schools, we can test for other things as well. So we need the community's help, because we know students need to be in school. That was definitely clear very quickly last year. We have to get our students back into school, and we have to do it safely. And that takes the whole community to help each other to do it right.
Well, this is probably unpopular, but I'd like to make a motion that we consider making our mask policy a little stronger. I feel like I've gotten enough feedback from people in the community, especially medical people, who really are asking us to consider requiring masks. I recognize that the governor has put us in a position where we really can't. We don't have a legal leg. They've taken away local control, unfortunately. But I would like us to emphasize that. So I would like a motion that we at least discuss that.
So that's a motion. I'm sorry, we're having a meeting here in the public, not of the public. There's a motion on the floor to
discuss making our policy stronger, our wording stronger.
So I don't think we make a motion to discuss.
Okay, so a
Because we're
motion
having-
to make our mask policy say, we highly recommend that students wear masks to school.
Okay, there's a motion to make the language in our policy to highly recommend of masks. Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Now for discussion. Dr. Burnett, I know other systems around us have done similar recommending or encouraging. Can you tell us how you feel?
I think that it's going to be really important for our families to take this seriously as we move forward. Brand new school year, we're going to have kids in schools. Schools are going to be full 2 days from now. So I know that a couple other districts did make the recommendation that they recommend masks, but they're still optional. And that's essentially, I think, what you're saying. Recommended, but still parental choice.
And how do you feel?
How do I feel?
Mhm. If you were to give us a recommendation?
That I would recommend to begin the year to have parents that the board recommends masks for students, but there is parental option to choose to or not to choose to. Because we really, at this point, don't have I mean, the governor has essentially taken that option to require masks. So
I'm not sure that, how is this any different than what we have, which is masks are optional?
I think we set the tone for our community in many ways. And I think it's important that we say as a group that we highly recommend it because we do think it's better for our community and for our children.
Well, I disagree that it's better for the kids and the community because, and we can, obviously it's got a second, so it'll come to a vote, but I cannot emphasize the mental health effects that I saw from masking, us being isolated, and the learning loss from the wearing the mask. So I don't think I'm in a position to recommend it as a board member. I'm not going to recommend that because there may be a parent that wants to mask their child and we'll support it. And if you don't, we'll support it. But I'm not in a position to recommend that to families.
Dr. Wallace, can you tell us a little bit about what we've been hearing about community spread in recent days?
So it has increased, obviously. I know the ballot scorecard came out recently. I forget the exact numbers. I don't have it right in front of me. I think it's gone from, Dr. Barnett, I think you got it with 40 to 100 and some, and COVID hospitalization.
In 6 days, went from 42 to 100.
Yes.
And they're increasing the NICU at Nicewater.
I don't think it would be the NICU. That's the babies.
So it's excuse me.
The PICU.
PICU, thank you.
And I know, according to the White House coronavirus map that's discussed in the weekly meetings, we have gone from low transmission to substantial transmission since the first week of July. So that's something that's concerned. We'll have another call with the regional health department tomorrow with the latest statistics on that, and I'd certainly be glad to share that information with you. And just one point of reference to Ms. Simpson's point, Dr. Carter's point, we do have signage throughout all of our buildings that similar to what the city has in their buildings. As you walk into the city, the CDC recommends the use of masks for all unvaccinated folks. I know that's a little different than the CDC recommendations on return to schools, but that is something that is throughout all of our buildings, that exact same wording. We tried to be consistent with the city there.
Ms. Treese.
Yes, I just want to, I'm sorry I'm late. My second son has his orientation today at Science Hill, so apologize for that. I was being a mom. But my concern, I support the highly recommendation for masking. And it's not only for helping to protect those kids, as well as helping parents feel a little bit more at ease. But some of the emails that I've gotten from adults are attacking me as if I don't have some kind of a voice in this. So I feel that if parents are willing to send an email to me about that, on that level, at that attitude, I feel that their kids will have that same attitude. And I am concerned about children bullying those kids who do not have masks. I know some people in the stores and you get the look. I will wear a mask as long as I want to because I'm 61 and I can make that choice. And I think everybody gets to have that choice. But I do know that people give you looks, and I think those same folks have kids that will do the same. So it's not about forcing anyone to wear a mask. You get to have that choice. You get to have that choice with your child. But I think if we as a system take the higher road to take an extra step to protect all students, it's not just those whose parents don't want to wear a mask, but those parents who have kids who want to wear the mask, all students. We are on the stage for all students, not just your friends or people who support what you think. We have to take I take my personal opinion about a mask and I put it aside and I look at what all students I think is in the best interest for them. So putting the word highly recommend changes nothing except encouraging you folks to think, we really want you to think seriously about that. That's not a problem, I don't think, because you don't have to think seriously about it if you don't want to. There's no way that we can change what has come down through the governor. We can't. But at least we can put something in place that will help those families who have some concerns about sending their kids into our classes without a mask or with a mask or sitting next to someone who does not have a mask. We should do all we can to support all families. If you don't want to put a mask on your child, please don't. Burn your mask and just don't. But don't bully, don't harass those folks who want to. And that's my concern. If we don't put something in there that makes it say, I really, really want to encourage you to consider a mask. You don't have to, but think about it. That's the bullying part of that is my biggest. I get it. I get the eyes. I get the looks. You know, kids are going to get that.
Ms. Treese, and I'll say that Dr. Barnett has certainly addressed that issue in the administrative meetings that we've had with principals to make sure that.
Is that phone for me? Is that like you're applauding or what? Sorry about that.
I thought it was like playoff music.
I thought it was
at the
like,
Oscars,
yeah,
like
Ms. Treese, or maybe it was like,
go but so yeah, that certainly that is something that again Dr. Barnett brought up specifically and addressed with the administrators at our last administrative.
That's what I was going to say. It just won't be tolerated. We cannot tolerate that.
Yes, cannot.
You have to be able to have a choice and be able to come to school and feel comfortable doing so. And our community can help us with that to say, okay, we're not sending you with a mask, but there are going to be kids with masks who need to be supportive of each other. And just one community.
And I think, it's important for us also to keep in mind, we're not talking about, I really hope this Delta variant goes away quickly. And we're not talking about a year-long recommendation. We're talking about a recommendation for now, in hopes that it's a very short time. I think we were very successful. We were in school. I've heard this, and I hadn't thought of this. Indian Trail was the largest school to be in session for the longest time in the state of Tennessee last year. And I think we did that because we put some good protocols in place. We did what we needed to do to make sure kids were in school. And I think that is our biggest goal right now, is to keep as many kids in school as we can.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Can I make one
absolutely.
comment? I agree with all of the concerns that you have, but I also agree it should be a parental choice. I don't want it to be. I don't think that as a system we should make that recommendation. That should be a discussion between the parent and their doctor and the child. And so I'm going to vote no for it. But I do agree that we cannot tolerate any bullying when it comes to those that choose to wear a mask. Should feel comfortable wearing it, and it shouldn't just be tolerated at all, any type of bullying.
And I'm not sure if I agree with the word highly in there, but I do think it is prudent of us to recommend mask wearing when our community spread is as high as it is. Again, we're not able to, we're not going to take it out of the parents' hands, but I think it does send a different message that when we recommend mask wearing, I'm going to make an amendment that we change that from highly recommend to recommend mask wearing.
Just, I came in late, so there has not been any discussion to make it mandatory. Am I correct?
We don't have, we
Yeah,
can't.
there is no discussion. We can't. So there's no discussion of making your child have to wear a mask. So we should be at least on some kind of an agreement here with everybody.
All
I
right,
would
so
hope.
there's an amendment, a motion to amend out there. Is there a second to my motion to amend to take the word highly out?
I will second that.
Okay. Mr. Hager, I know you called the question. I understand that there's a whole series of votes we have to take to call the question, so it doesn't just go away. I think we're probably ready to vote if that's, unless someone else has anything they need to add. So first we vote on the amendment. The amendment is, so all we're voting on now is to take the word highly out of Ms. Simpson's motion. And by voting yes to this, it doesn't mean you vote yes to the other one. This is just to amend the motion. Will you call the roll?
Dr. Ginger Carter,
No.
Mr. Herb Greenlee,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas Hager,
No.
Ms. Kathy Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Beth Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Michelle Tree,
Yes.
Mr. Robert Williams,
No.
Okay, so that was
3 no.
so 4 yeses. So that means that amendment passed. Vote on the motion to, in our protocols, say that we recommend, so it's the motion as amended, that we recommend mask wearing. Will you call the roll?
Dr. Ginger Carter,
No.
Mr. Herb Greenlee,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, Ms. Kathy Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Beth Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Michelle Tree,
Yes.
Mr. Robert Williams,
No.
So that motion passes. It doesn't mean we take away any parental choice at all. It's just saying that in our protocols, we recommend mask wearing. And I hope we get to a point very quickly that we don't feel that way. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. In the past, we have allowed our Dr. Barnett and our administrators, when things change quickly, to start making decisions that might change the protocols, whether that's to close a classroom or to, we have no ability to go remote, but I can foresee with community spread going up that you all might need to make some decisions very quickly. I would like to give you the ability to do that without calling a meeting of us again. So you did a great job last year. I'm going to make a motion that we put the changing of any protocols back in your hands. You can always, if you feel the need to have a board meeting, you certainly can.
Ms. Hall, I want clarification, change protocol or have the opportunity to make decisions on classroom closures or wing closures?
Both.
Okay.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on that?
Yes, I would amend that any mask mandates would be exempt from that. That would have to come before the board for a decision.
Okay, there's a motion to amend. Is there a second to that
I'll
motion?
second that amendment.
Okay. Any discussion on that? So we'll vote on the amendment first, which is to take masks out of your ability to change protocols or or close classrooms, et cetera. So we do a roll call vote on that amendment.
Dr. Ginger Carter,
I just want to clarify. So the amendment was that any changes in a mask policy would come back before the board,
Yes.
correct? Okay. So yes, I vote for that amendment.
Mr. Herb Greenlee, Mr. Thomas Hager,
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Hall,
No.
Ms. Beth Simpson,
No.
Ms. Michelle Tree,
No.
Mr. Robert Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so that amendment passes. I'm not sure we actually have to vote on the motion then, because it is exactly where we are right now. So I guess let's go ahead and vote because there's a motion out there and we'll do it. So as amended, we give our Dr. Barnett and our administrators the ability to make changes, to make decisions on closing of classrooms or changing in protocols that does not include masks, as you see fit. You call the roll.
But wait, but that is no change. So we don't need a motion, right?
We don't, but we have a motion on the floor to do this, and so let's go ahead and confirm that.
Okay. Yes.
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 Okay. Next recommended, next.
Thank you.
support.
Thank you.
Dr. Walls.
Next report is Keith Turner. He's going to talk about GoFan football tickets. Thanks for being here. We've gone from paper ticket sales to GoFan, and there's some questions about it. And Mr. Turner's here to talk about it.
Okay, actually, our fans will have two options. We're not going totally to GoFan digital ticketing. Eventually, we would probably like to do that. Last year, dealing with COVID, that was one of the recommendations that came from the TSSAA to cut down on handling money and contact with people, was to go to a digital ticketing system. We felt like we still had a portion of our population that wasn't comfortable with that, and we always try to serve them just like a customer. But many of the other schools in our area have gone to that totally. So if you go to an away game, you need to understand how to navigate that. And once you've done it a couple of times, it really is much easier and more convenient. So basically, this summer, Janet Phillips, the athletic secretary, worked with GoFan, and they developed a seating chart for our entire stadium. And people could go on there and pick out their tickets. We gave our season ticket holders first choice and timing, allowed them a certain amount of time, and then you open it up to others. So basically, the fans pay whatever our ticket price that we're asking, and there is a fee, just like with any other.
Do you know what that fee is?
For example, for a season ticket, that's $80. For the reserve seats in the middle, that fee was $6.
Okay.
And it's about $1.10 for a regular $8 ticket. And on a parking pass, that was $60, and I think it was like $4 for that. So there is a fee, but most of you that have attended concerts and things like that, you understand that. Eventually, it will make it much simpler. Last year, when Knox Catholic canceled on us, we were experimenting with it, and all their fans bought their tickets through GoFan. Within 10 minutes, I went online, hit a button, and they refunded all those people their money. Now, if you look at our school procedures in refunding money, how long would that have taken, Leah? Every one of them would have had to fill out some sort of form to get a refund. So for us, we thought that was a good way to do it. As I said, our plan is to continue to do both. Janet Phillips has brought people into her office. They brought their credit card with them. She has walked them through it. She's been on the phone with them. So we're still willing to help do that, and we'll help people work out those issues. If you have your tickets and you can't go, and you decide you want to give them to somebody else, you're caught in Nashville somewhere, you go onto your tickets on your GoFan app, and you hit transfer, and you can email them directly to the person that you want to have them. At the gate, our people they'll pull up their tickets, and it says activate, And so that's how they activate their ticket. So multiple people cannot use that. There's others out there. This is the one that most of the people in our area started using. We don't get any money from it. We don't pay them any money. It comes directly from the people that purchase their tickets.
And so for people who that, what's the option?
The option would be to see Janet Phillips at the high school. We could sell you a regular ticket somehow. She handmade some tickets for people that felt more comfortable with that. We'll be selling some tickets at the gate as well. So as I said, right now we're doing both.
Question would be, in case internet's down or some, obviously we might not have internet there. So does a screenshot work?
Yes, it does. It does. It's
Does-
better to activate it because, I mean, technically somebody, if you screenshot your ticket, you could send that to somebody else and we don't have a way, because it'll say like void or activated on your screen. So
Keith, so if somebody, I'm sorry. So if somebody does screenshot it and send a screenshot, once they've gone through the gate, you try to go through, you can't get in.
right.
Okay.
Mr. Hager had a question.
I
And then Mr. Williams.
understood, there's a $4.50 fee and there's an $11 fee.
The fees are based on the total amount, Mr. Hager. And as I said, for the middle seats, the season tickets that are $80, the maroon seats, that fee is $6 that goes to GoFan.
So there's an old man out there like me that just likes high school football. Johnson City's playing somebody. He can walk up to the ticket booth.
Get it
a
cheaper.
ticket,
Yes.
Like,
Can right now, yes. We're doing both to meet for everybody to have a choice.
I would not support this at all. I would not support this at all. I know I'm not up to the times. I still have a flip phone. Board secretary does my emails. I would not support what you're doing at all if you did not give me an option. And I would not be very happy if you did not give me an option. The University of Tennessee told me you can either do it their way or we'll send you a ticket like you've gotten in the past.
Yes.
I know they're much bigger. They have a lot more money, but I still think I should have an option of getting my ticket in my hand, walking in and handing someone a ticket. So, so far, sounds like you've worked that out so people who want a ticket can get a ticket.
Ms. Phillips has done that with several people, Mr. Hager. We're not going totally to it yet. And I do think in the near future that most high schools will go to that. Right now, if you want to go watch a game with us playing Bristol, that's the only way you can get in. If you want to play against Cherokee, volunteer.
I hate to be a stubborn old man. I won't be going. to
I understand.
games. And I think you're going to lose some people.
And that's why right now we're currently easing into it, Mr. Hager. We're going to try to help all those people that have different thoughts on it. I've told Ms. Phillips just to work with the fans and she'll do it for you. She'll show you how to do it. We'll show you how to do it, or we'll give you, she made tickets that will get you into our home games.
But I understand too, you cannot print off the ticket.
Now you can print them off.
Well, the information I got was you would have to use your phone, smartphone, and you cannot print off the ticket.
If we choose to purchase like a scanner and you show us that ticket, which now we haven't purchased it yet. So, but if we scan it, then it would work. But that stuff costs about $3,000 and we haven't done that yet.
How do students buy tickets?
Sorry, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams had a question.
I just had a question about the cost savings on the printed ticket and Is it significant?
Probably $3,000 or $4,000 a year to print all those different, no, just football. Yeah, we were having to have a packet of tickets printed every year. And of course, we've moved it around because, the prices go up at different places. But there is a significant, we used to get free tickets from a group called Huddle. Well, now that GoFan has come along, it's hurt them. They were getting sponsors like advertisers on the back of the tickets. So we're not getting those anymore. Students, Ms. Treese, you were asking about students. They can buy them on GoFan or we'll sell them at the gate at our home games. We have to have the same amount of people working the gates anyway. So I don't think it's that big a deal. You might have a line over here where people can go through and show their cell phone and activate their ticket in front of the person. And then over here, you'll have somebody selling the tickets. That's what we're currently doing. And then if it becomes an issue and that's something that I need to bring before you to totally approve, if we ever go that route, then obviously we'll do that.
Any other questions for Mr. Turner?
And it is mainly for football, Mr. Hager. We didn't do it last year in the other sport ball for purely the volume, all the cancellations that were going on. So.
How is ticket sales?
About where they were last year at this time, probably 60, 70% of the people have bought the middle sections that have normally bought them. We're hoping with this game moving to ETSU will create some more excitement and a bigger crowd, and we'll make up for some things there. And you asked a question earlier about the turf. I've been told as of today, it's Wednesday that a crew's coming in and start taking it up. That's the latest that we got.
Who's doing the turf?
Sprint Turf is the company. Somewhere up north. I'm not sure. They do a lot of projects up north.
And how long does that take when they start?
In an ideal world, they say 2 weeks with perfect weather. This was about the cutoff, in my opinion. If they hadn't got here this week, to me, we probably should have not do it until after the season. The field was tested last week. The city brought in a person, did the impact test all around the field. It passed everywhere except a couple of spots that can be fixed. So if something was to happen and they're going to delay us even more, that would be my recommendation to the powers to be, is to delay it, because we can deal with these 3 weeks. I think I've got to move 1 middle school football game, 1 high school soccer, and 1 middle school soccer. So we're prepared to do that. After that, it gets tough. The middle school football game that we'll have to move, there's nowhere else in the city to play that. That will cost the middle school about $3,000. Ticket sales for their game against Vance. I've already contacted Vance and they can host it, so it's an easy switch. If our field is done, we'll play it at our place. If not, we'll go to Vance. It's not worth it to go to Indian Trail right now to try to line off a field, to try to get 5 ticket takers. We don't know if the scoreboard works out there yet. That's something obviously we've got to get done before next year. Mr. Hager, we still have some little things to figure out with GoFan. It's new to all of us, at least us at Science Hill, and we're working through those issues.
Any other questions?
We also did the prom with this. I didn't do that, but the person that did really liked it. They had something like $7,700 worth of tickets. And if something would have happened for refunds, they could have just hit the button and refunded it to all the students.
Thank you. Next report's the financial report ending May 31st, 2021. Leah Valley.
Leah, I'm going to make a recommendation. We had a long meeting already. You've given us a written report. We've read it. If there's something big you want to highlight, do it, but I don't think you have to walk us through the whole report.
All I'll say is that we're working on June and closing out. Preliminary, it's looking better than what we were projecting. So I just give you that little bit of good news. The health insurance, we transferred to the state July. We didn't do an additional transfer in May. We did transfer $250,000 in June. We've got in the billing for July, and we had to transfer about $450,000. We budgeted $3 million for the year, so I really feel like we're in a good spot so far with it. So
That's great news.
that's it.
Any questions for Leah on the financial report? I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
I'm good.
I do have one question.
Yes.
When is it, let's see, that policy ended June the 30th. So are we expecting in 3 months that we would have all of that settle out from the insurance?
In the contract, we have 6 months that we're obligated. Yep.
All right, the financial report is an action item.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
Thank you. The next report from Leah is update on sales tax, PEP.
You want me to go into this? It'll be quick.
Real quick.
Just a recap kind of for the end of the year as of June. Collections for the year were 9.75% to the previous year. That's the sales tax growth. And expenditures and disbursements were down $974,000. So we've seen a good growth in that fund, and it was 2.14 million above the previous year. So
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you for all those reports, and I'm sorry for our people observing. Our meetings are usually much quicker, but here you are. We have no unfinished business. That brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wishes to pull? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
Okay. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right. Steve,
Okay, we have some new business.
you don't have any recommendations though, right?
Excuse me, no recommendation.
Okay, bring us to new business.
New business. Transfer and tuition legislation resolution. We had some legislation this past year, and I'll just read the resolution unless you prefer to do it.
No, go for it.
I'll read this resolution and hopefully it's self-explanatory. I've talked to all of you about it, but I think it does have to be read into the record, so I'll read it. A resolution of the Johnson City Schools Board of Education requesting an amendment for open enrollment period for LEAs. Whereas Tennessee Code annotated 49-2-128 requires that a local education agency provide an open enrollment period during which parents may choose from a list of LEA schools with available space and request transfer with a parental responsibility for transportation to a school if the transfer is approved. And whereas the Senate Bill 788, House Bill 1305, as presented and approved, also required LEA LEA identify each school that has the capacity to enroll additional students before the start of each school year and post the number of spaces available for enrollment for each school by grade, class, and program level on the LEA's website at least 14 days prior to the beginning of the open enrollment period. And whereas State Board 788 House Bill 1305 as presented and approved places unintended and undue burdens on LEAs as it would not allow boards of education to limit transfers between schools to prevent inequities in programming, staffing, and demographic makeup of the schools. And whereas the Johnson City Board of Education is in the final phase to create 2 equitable middle schools within our district, and whereas the public at large entrusts this important planning to the board members, district staff, and there is a current TSBA recommended policy in place for transfer students within a system. Now therefore be it resolved that the Johnson City Board of Education shall request that State Board 788 House Bill 1305 be rescinded or amended to require each local Board of Education to develop a policy to govern transfers within their district. It's adopted by the Johnson City Schools Board of Education the second day of August, 2021.
Any questions for Dr. Barnett? Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? That carries. All right. So we have on our agenda always now a item that's current meeting communication follow-up to make sure that we're communicating anything that happened at our meeting with interested parties. What do we need to follow up on from this meeting?
Well, I think that we need to have a statement about that we're recommending masks. I think it might not be a bad idea I think that we have put out a statement about this resolution, if I'm not mistaken, but I think it's important our community understand the legislation that's going on and how that might affect them. So if we can maybe make a statement about that. Maybe just,
And let's also take that resolution. So obviously send it to the legislators, but let's make that part of the TSBA annual conference too. They've sent out a call for resolution, so let's submit that.
All right.
Other than that, I think we're good to go. All right. That brings us to information items and committee reports. For our guests, this is the time when all of our staff gets to leave and not listen to the really exciting part, committee reports and information items. You guys can feel free to finish up your paperwork and half listen to us if you want.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.